anyway, what you guys didn't hear me say, welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming. This is our second in our series that we're doing this year of what we call the More You Know webinar. So after today, we still have 8 more that we're going to be doing this year. So we're so excited. We have the calendar already planned out of what the next sessions are going to be. And so See Spot Behave, which is Debbie Puckett and Diane Smith, they are one of our preferred training partners. If you ever want to know our resources on our website, we have our preferred trainers and our preferred vets. Those are people that we have vetted, that we have a relationship with, that we work with, and that we trust and believe in. So See Spot Behave, we love. They've worked with several gold ribbon dogs. We have a great relationship with them, and they are the presenters. I don't know if Diane's going to be presenting or if it's going to be mainly Debbie, but I'm going to turn it over to Debbie because I really want you guys to know what their credentials are. They have a lot of letters behind their name, and I'm not even going to try to mess that up, but they've worked hard to get those credentials. So I'm going to turn it over to Debbie and let Debbie introduce herself and take it away.
I see a gold in the background for you. What a surprise. Hi, everybody. I am Debbie Puckett, and my business partner is Diane, who I'll pop in here in just a second. And I'm going to start the presentation so I can show you our credentials. So hold on a second, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and we will get started. Let me get here. Ta-da. Okay. So in this webinar series, we are trying to connect some dots, and look, that'll be perfect. Okay, where were we? Oh, I was introducing us. So first,
you were introducing yourselves. We didn't get
then here we go. Here's who we are. And Diane is on the call too. The last one we did, it was just me solo. Diane's going to pop in here once in a while. I'll call her, and also at the end at Q&A, Diane will have an opportunity to chat too. But so my background, I'm a teacher. I have a master's in education, and you know what? Teaching dogs and teaching teenagers, really not much difference. Give them good treats, give them rewards, clearly explain what you want. That's really clear. For how I got into dog training, and this might be something that has prompted you guys to look into it too, is I had a reactive dog. And she was so reactive, I was a little afraid that she was going to cause some harm. And so I took her to a trainer and went, this is neat. And I spent my weekends and vacations while I was working as a teacher to become certified as a trainer and then as a behavior consultant. I'm also fear-free certified, which means that, we use methods that go the pace the dog needs. And I'm also an AKC CGC evaluator. Diane, I'm going to let Diane pop in and introduce yourself. Diane and I worked together at Dog Boys, which at one point closed. And so we had spent some time working together, then a little bit working apart. And this whole time, over years, we've been collaborating. And finally, we put ourselves together into the company See Spot Behave. So I don't know. Diane, are you there? Do you want to pop in and say hi?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you.
Well, thank you for letting me join. I'm so excited to be part of this evening. I was so bummed I missed the last one. But like Debbie said, my background is the same. I had, you can kind of see in that picture there, the cream colored gold dog was my dog Harley, and she's husky, or was husky and chow, and she was nuts. So in order to save my sanity as well as my home, took her to training and fell in love with it. I was very fortunate that I found a company in California that had a dog behaviorist trainer. And so I apprenticed under her for about 6 years, working on the basics all the way up to behavioral training, which is my love now because it's so important for dogs to understand how to be dogs in a people world. So like I said, I've been doing this now, gosh, rapidly hitting probably 15, 16 years now of training, and just adore the opportunity to work with people and work with dogs to help you create bonds and understand how to help your dogs learn how to be in the world. So that's my background there.
Yeah, we tend to work on like, I'm the nerd and she's the trainer. So I'm like, I do all the sciencey stuff, and then she, as you can see, my picture's cuddling and hers is hiking. There's the difference. So here we are. What I hope you'll learn today is a little bit more about golden retrievers themselves, especially how they interact with the world, how their nervous system works, and how to deal with some of the common stuff that you see with either a foster or newly adopted dog, or heck, even the dog you've got now that's been around for 6 years. I'm going to give you some tools to work with them. And what I'm going to do is, instead of hitting like a whole bunch of recipe type things, I'm going to give you the core of behavior, why these behaviors happening underneath, and a tool to help you create good recipes for approaching your dog. So you're going to get, a real great toolkit. And here we are. This is what everybody thinks a golden retriever is, the absolute perfect dog. And you notice this dog is looking in a mirror because his GRR is backwards. And that is very good. They love the mirror. I don't know if you have ever had your golden in front of a mirror, but they do enjoy that. They are super sweet. And people think, I'm going to get this dog because they are so easy. And that's can be true, but they're also one of the most easily emotionally dysregulated of dogs. And so while they're great in some ways, especially in their adolescence, they really need some supports. They can be fear-based. They can actually be a little bit skitsy, a little afraid of movement and things like that. So these kind of come in with the breed. And often they are either overestimated or underestimated because they're a golden. So, they're so gentle. They must be a dog I can approach because it's a golden, or my kid can hug that dog because it's a golden. And so we'll talk about some of those things as we go through, is like, what really do we need to define these goldens as, and how we can make them live up to their reputation or help them. So I want to do a little comparison of the unicorn myth. Is a golden retriever actually a unicorn? Is it the best dog out there? And if we want to dispel some myths, how can we look clearly at the dog we have in front of us and be able to support them as they are? So I know you've heard this, like, they're the perfect family dog. They're great with kids. They're always gentle. They're super eager to please and obedient. They just want to be cuddled. They just want to be snuggled. Most people think they're the perfect therapy dog, they come out being a therapy dog. They need no training for it. And that they can be calm in any environment, even a hugely distracting environment. But in reality, we have a dog that needs patient training and structure, especially in their adolescence. They're mouthy and jumpy, and because they can be pretty big, that can hurt when you get knocked down by a golden. They're emotionally very intense. They can shut down or panic. They need decompression, which we talked about in the last presentation, how decompression is so important when you get a new dog into your space. But they can need decompression when you take them for an outing. They might need some time to decompress. They're very sensitive to noise and transitions. They might be super interested in things, but also a little bit freaked out by them. So you can see them have neophobia, like, what is that? And that's if they're not emotionally regulated. What they really need from us, not just love, they really need clear communication, solid routine, emotional support. They need that to live up to the myth of being the unicorn dog. Is there anything I missed on this list, either as the myth that you've heard or some realities about goldens?
I have a unicorn dog. I have Li Ming, who came from China. I've never had a dog so easy.
I love it.
Easy, yeah. She's
Mhm.
perfect.
I
And
love
I have Luigi.
And as trainers, Diane and I will encounter people who say, I had the best dog and it passed away and now I'm getting another one, and this one is not like that dog. That dog was perfect and this dog needs a lot of work. And that's really common. So once you get that perfect dog, remember to forgive the future dogs in your life for not being perfect. Anyone else want to share? Okay. Okay. Here's the sad side.
Want to trade with that perfect dog.
That's a good idea.
I got a 7-month-old, and it's testing me.
Adolescence. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. You'll learn some tools here, hopefully. Adolescence is tough on Goldens. They are just squirrels, huge squirrels, and they don't listen, not particularly well. And that's actually a great segue to this. You know, why do Goldens get surrendered? And aside from things like high medical costs or the family moves or, you know, exterior things, the baggage Goldens have that get them in the shelter or in rescues is that they have these following behaviors. They have separation anxiety, and they can be really destructive if they are not regulated. Their adolescence energy is not so cute. They are the zooming tornado stage, and they are, like you said, Mona, they try you. It's hard. And because they're so emotionally intense and dysregulated, if we can go for the regulation instead of training, it works better. So that's kind of what we're going to do in this session, is talk about how to help them regulate. They don't frequently end up on bite lists. What we usually see is that if they have been cornered, or they're guarding something, or they've had a bad experience and are afraid, they can bite out of fear. Now, they're a dog. Every dog can bite. Every dog has the equipment to bite. But really, we see that happening in multi-dog incidents with Goldens. Sometimes we see bites with children, and that's usually fear or guarding. But it usually comes back to them being way too stressed, overwhelmed, and dysregulated. So here's where we are. Here's where all of you are. You've got these dogs coming in, and some of them have bounced back like Patsy. Some of them are in great shape, and some are going to be a lot of work. So what do we do? Well, Goldens are really specific. You don't have to worry about, thinking about it as a super broad look, but we're going to look very specifically at their behavior. So if we expect adolescence to be intense, we can set up tools and tricks to help with that. And the bad news is adolescents can last until 3 years old with Goldens. They are puppies for a lot longer than some other dogs. You want to create predictable sessions or lifestyles, predictable environment, predictable routines, and you want to work with consent with them. And you want to work in training not so much on obedience as building confidence. And then you can work with training that's more about working with you, manners and obedience. And sometimes people, when they get a dog that's rescued, they'll say, this Golden is so calm, but that Golden could be shut down. And we'll talk about that. So we're going to put together some clear structure. We're going to give them some agency. We're going to create connection. And we're going to do it through this lens of the polyvagal theory. Now, I'm going to go harken back to the first session we had together. And that session, we mentioned a couple of things: decompression, giving them time to get oriented. But we also talked about the vagus nerve and the vagal massage. And now we're going to go a little bit deeper into this concept, the polyvagal theory. Now, what does that mean? Look at this diagram. He's cute. Cute puppy. The vagus nerve in a dog comes down both sides of their neck. It actually comes up from the base of their ear, goes down both sides of their neck, runs down kind of the length of their spine on both sides and into the legs. That's the dorsal branch. Dorsal is the back, kind of like a dorsal fin on a fish. Then it also splits to the front, which is the ventral branch, and handles and talks to all the organs. And then it goes deep inside and talks to those autonomic organs, the ones that you don't control or think about. So the vagus nerve is involved in flight, fight, freeze, play, courting, becoming aggressive. It's all connected through the vagus nerve. And we're going to identify how each of those sections, and when you can look at the dog's look at the dog's behavior, you can identify what part of the vagus nerve is working, and then you can actually address the behavior at a different level. So polyvagal just means all three branches of the vagus nerve. And this is actually human based. So if you can apply this to your own self, and you can apply it to anybody you know as well. So as we go through, you can think of people in your life that need help with their vagus nerve. It applies to all mammals. So we're looking at internal states rather than external behaviors. So most training is like, do this or don't do this, sit or stay. And it's about the behavior itself. We're going to be looking at what the dog is thinking and feeling and converting that into appropriate behavior. Any questions on the vagus nerve, or did you try the vagus nerve massage with any success? Anyone who's had it?
I have used that massage now when I can on my girls when they're nervous from a storm. And I know that there's some other people within Gold Ribbon after that last seminar that did use that. I got feedback and had a lot of success.
Yay, that's such good news. So we're just going to leap off of what we know from that massage. And if you haven't seen the first session, Michelle will post it so you can see that information.
Okay,
Rob.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Before we go further, I might think I know what dysregulated means in
Sure.
a dog, but could you explain that, please?
Oh, your timing is perfect. We're going to definitely discuss what that means. I'm going to give you a basic definition, and then we're going to dive into that.
Okay.
So a dog, something is regulated, human, dog, any other mammal, means that they are able to, if they have a strong emotion, they're able to bring it back down and go back to kind of even easily. They have the ability to flex that muscle to relax. A dysregulated person or mammal, any other mammal, dog, is one that is switched on, usually in a frantic basis, and they aren't able to switch off.
Mhm.
So if you think about it in terms of human ADHD, that hyperactivity is switched on and they aren't able to switch it off without some assistance. Same with dogs. Gosh, the adolescent golden is switched on and very difficult to switch off. But you can also think of it in terms of panic and fear. That's switched on and they don't know how to get out of panic. And we actually have worked with several dogs now in GRR where we have got some medication to help them get out of panic, and they're regulating. They're able to start regulating and becoming normal and having small reactions to small triggers. And then when they get triggered immensely, they're able to come back down easily.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Thank you for asking that. And everybody, if I throw out a term and you're like, just ask. That was perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Here's the sciencey part, and I'm going to go slow on this because once you get this and you go, aha, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I know how to communicate with my dog no matter what they're doing. It's great. So if we look at that diagram of the dog, and you've got the dorsal, ventral, and sympathetic deep inside branches of the vagus nerve, they control whether or not a dog is shut down in high mobility or doing fine. So I'm going to start with doing fine. We're going to label the ventral part of the nerve green, as in go. Okay. If a dog is in their ventral part and it's controlling them of their vagus system, they're fine. They're calm. They're alert. They're connecting with you. In other words, they feel safe. And this is where learning happens. We need the dog to be in this state to be trainable. And we need the dog to be in this state to connect to other dogs and other people. So green is where we want to be. What does a green dog look like? Is they're relaxed. The tail is kind of a low swinging tail instead of a high hyper tail or a tucked tail. They're engaging. They're looking at you. They're coming up and asking for pets, and they're playing. This is the state that we're hoping to get dogs to return to. So Sharon, when you asked about dysregulated, this is regulated. This is the regulated state.
Okay.
And so when they get triggers, they go into yellow or red, and we want them to come back down to green. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So the yellow is the sympathetic Sympathetic means that your body is helping you mobilize and do things. So sympathetic doesn't mean it's nice. It just means it's helping you. Yellow means the dog is acting, in other words, active, but not in a positive way. It's too much. It's the flight and fight. It's if their body's moving fast. It's when they're frustrated. This is when they're reactive. Okay. If the dog is active, it's in yellow. So that's the barking, jumping, chewing, door dashing, barking like crazy and not stopping, an impulsive dog. But if the dog is still, then it's in red. So red doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it does mean the dog is in a fear state, a frozen state. Okay. And I like with dorsal, because dorsal is back. Most dogs that are in a frozen state, they've hunched their back. They're under and they're tucking themselves to be smaller. And that's what the red state is for dorsal. So they freeze. Okay. They usually flatten themselves and try to make themselves look small. I have frozen and freeze. Yeah, okay. They do both of those things, but they're shut down. So a calm dog can be shut down, or it can be in green state. You have to kind of look for some other stuff. So a green state dog would be relaxed, whereas a red state dog might just freeze and not want to move. Okay? They might be under your bed and barely peeking out. They might be passive. You can't get their attention. You can't get them to eat. They don't go after a rolling ball. They don't interact with you. They often have potty accidents because they're in a frozen state. They won't go outside. They're afraid to. So you'll see accidents in that situation. They can be completely disconnected. This is the dog who has the back to you and is facing a wall and not interacting with the room. So red doesn't mean they're doing anything bad. It just means they have disconnected with the world and they have turned totally inside. And so when you get a new dog, whether you've adopted or it's a foster, if that dog is super calm, look for the difference in body language. If the dog is relaxed and panting and is entering your space and is interested in you, that's a green dog. If they're moving slowly, cautiously, if they're kind of afraid to sniff, they don't go explore, your dog is shut down. Okay. So to keep it easy, green is great. That's your dog that is chill, happy-go-lucky. That's the dog that we all think that the true golden is. Yellow is the one that's all the behaviors that are making you crazy. All of them. From fighting to, just bounding out the door, chasing squirrels, all of those, it's all activity. And then red is the dog that is trying to disconnect with life, does not want input. Okay. Questions about this before we move on, or comments? If you know where the state your dog is in right now, you're welcome to volunteer that and explain why you think that. Gabby, if he's always high, as in like high activity, then he is probably in yellow most of the time. Dogs that can't settle are in yellow. Just worked with a dog today that very old dog, 14-year-old dog. So you would expect it, they're not going to be high energy much, but we could tell the dog was in yellow and red because he was going from frantically kind of pacing. So that's yellow. And then he would get in the bed and kind of curl up. He wouldn't let us really interact with him. And he'd turn his head away when we wanted to interact. So he's moving between those two states. Oh yeah, that happy hightail, that's arousal, and that is definitely yellow. That's a good observation. Okay, let's see how we apply this. See how it makes sense. Okay, now remember we have these unicorn dogs, but these unicorn dogs do all of these behaviors. We get calls about these behaviors all the time, stealing and chewing up things, barking madly, insanely at things, dashing out the front door, becoming reactive, biting at home, digging up the garden. We just had one that Diane and I just worked with, one that was frantically digging all the time unless you gave him attention. My favorite is the two dogs arguing at the fence, because that's what they do. They lean over the fence and argue over, which is great. And of course, we see a lot of the dogs, like the one in the bottom corner, that the dog would just prefer to hide. So these are the behaviors we're going to address, and then you'll get to put out the behaviors you observe in your dog, and we can tell you how to address that. We're going to walk you through that process. So what changes when you look at that state instead of the behavior? When you're looking for, is my dog in green, yellow, or red versus this specific behavior? Well, actually, then you can get what the dog is communicating to you. So if my dog is getting into the garbage, I would like, why is he doing that? And I'll be addressing my frustration with the garbage and then cleaning it up and, try to figure out how to train him out of it. But then if I look at it as this is a yellow state, this is not a harmonious state, and he's doing other yellow state behaviors, then I'm going to work on redirecting the dog and or giving them something else to do, looking for frustration. What's the point of frustration? Or are they lonely and that's how they expressed it? So I'll be starting to seek the reason for it. And if I can address the reason he's going into the garbage, then I may be able to convert it. Now, I'm going to say this. Sometimes they go into the garbage because it smells good and it's there. That's my fault. If they're in the garbage because it's in their way, in their space, and they just want the yummies, that's more about an operator error. I'm talking about the dog is kind of frantically going for it, can't leave it alone, keeps getting into it. I've got to look for that. What's going on with him? So we're going to put this into action, okay? I'm going to ask you with your dogs, notice their behavior first, ask what state they're in, okay? Try to meet that nervous system need. What are we working with? And then we'll match tools to it. I have a chart we're going to go to next, and you'll see as we work through them, oh yeah, there's a pattern here, and we'll be able to get the dog oriented. I'm going to ask you guys to participate on some of this next bit. So you tell me stories about your dogs. This part tells us what to do depending on the color of the dog, not the color the dog's in. If you have a green dog, that's the puppy that's playing. Okay, they greet guests, they're calm, they don't jump, they don't bite, they don't nibble. So what do? Ask them to do a little bit more, but don't overload them. Give them new cues, give them new things to play with, teach them something. That's what you need to do with a green dog. So if your dog is already doing well, this is the place you get to challenge them a little bit. You get to move them forward. If you have your golden that's checking in on a walk, they're every few steps checking in with you. They look at a squirrel, they check in with you. That's beautiful. Sure. That's absolutely fantastic. Maybe you can put your dog on a long line at that point and let them have more distance. Okay. With a yellow graded dog, you've got like this adolescent golden barks out of the window for 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, that is so maddening. And it just drives you crazy. Well, what he's telling you is I'm bored. And so you can give him some movement games. You can take him out on a safari. You can go through cues and keep him busy. You can redirect him, but you want to give him a physical outlet, not restraint. Often when a dog is at a window barking, our way of managing it is, well, I'm going to make you leave the window and I'm going to latch you up somewhere, put you behind a gate, put you behind a door, whatever. And that's because of necessity. I'm on the phone at work and my dog is barking. I have to deal with it. But now that I know this stuff, I would not just go put my dog in a bedroom and shut the door. I would tell, hang on a second. I'd grab a frozen Kong out of the freezer, put the dog in the room with something to do. And that makes the difference. So it's that how you adapt to doing that with your dog. If you are working with a dog that is pulling like crazy, trying to get...
This is Bob, I'm sorry. Before we go into the next part,
yeah.
I have a question in regards to what you just talked about with the dog barking at the window.
Go for it.
What if the cue is always the same, like a delivery guy?
Yeah.
Terrible. I mean,
okay.
and you can't get him to stop.
Can you cover the window?
Well, yes, I can close the blinds.
Yeah. So there's that. There's also this really great decal that you can put on that's not sticky. Use soap, water. You stick it on, and It filters light so the dog can't see, but you still get light in your room.
Oh,
So you've made the trigger less at that point. So you're removing the trigger. That helps him not get into that yellow state. But then you also want to give him something to do. Because honestly, if they're looking out the window and barking, that's their TV.
I
And
see.
that's their entertainment.
Yeah, he thinks it's his job.
It is. Yeah. And you have to fire him from his job. I say this all the time. Fire them from security. You have to take their vest away and their flashlight.
Okay.
Yeah. So cover that window, and we can supply the link to it, but these decals are amazing because one, they look nice, they still give you light, but it cuts your dog's ability to see that delivery purse coming. And then now all you have to do is just deal with when they hit that doorstep. And that's a little bit of training. What do I want him to do is something like a cue I call all clear. And it's, thank you for barking. I've checked it out. It's all clear. Come on with me. So when you thank them for barking instead of barking with them, then the dog is like, okay, you saw me do security. You've checked the monster and we're all safe. So I will come away with you.
Oh, good. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate that.
You betcha. And by the way, if you do all clear, we do have a handout for that. It's magical. It's amazing how to do it. But yeah, thanks, Bob. That's a great question.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about red dogs. You get a rescue and it hides under your dining table for days. Now, most folks are like, let's coax the dog out. Let's get treats. Let's talk to the dog. Let's do baby talk. Oh, baby, come on out. I'm so sorry you're not feeling well. Come on, baby, let me give you some treats. You want a toy? And really what the dog needs is for you to leave them alone completely and get a feel for the room. So avoid pushing dogs that are trying to shut down and get some me space. If they're really, truly so shut down that they're not moving and they're in a fear state, we're going to do some probably medical intervention. We'll do some training intervention, but really we're going to do some intervention that is the same speed they're going. If you try to speed them up, they will close up faster. Okay. And we've had some dogs, we've worked with a few GRR dogs that were hiding on the dining table. And I can think of, oh my gosh, what was her name, Diane? Was it Moonshine? Was it Moonshine that was hiding under the table? I think so.
Yes.
So Moonshine would not come out from under the dining table, no matter what. And she was their first night on gabapentin. We got her prescribed some gabapentin. She came out and she was fine. So it was a medical balance. You don't necessarily need training for those. But if we had spent time coaxing her, it would push her further into the shutdown. It'd make it worse for her. Another example is a dog that pancakes. They don't want to go out or they don't want to eat. Those, you got to figure out what the fear is and then gently train them and help them address that fear and help them deal with feeling secure in your space. So those are the overall. Any thoughts or questions on this before we move forward?
I have a question. Oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Let's do Gabby first.
Okay.
That's all I can see. Yep.
If they're pacing, is it better to like completely be out of sight or to be like near enough that they know you're there, but like don't bother them?
Yeah, if they're pacing and you've tried other things, you've tried redirection, you've tried offering them things, but pacing is where they're at. It is good to be nearby so that they know you're present, but not near enough that you're interfering with them. If you have one that's pacing a whole bunch and there's no trigger, you do definitely need a behavior consultation. We got to figure out why that's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And is it Mary Beth?
Mary Beth, yes.
Yeah.
We got a rescue yesterday from GRR, and she has spent a lot of time underneath the table, but she is, we've taken her outside. She loves to be outside. Nice. And she's okay to be inside, but the transition from outside to inside is hard for her, and she's very afraid of the door that goes from inside to outside.
Okay.
So how do we work through that?
Thresholds are horrible for a lot of dogs. They don't like them at all. I have a rescue now that hates the threshold. He either won't go through or he runs through.
She runs through. She runs through.
So You can help her. There are a couple things. If there's a big contrast in light, like it's much lighter inside and darker outside, or vice versa, that can be a problem for them sometimes. So if you're able to make the light kind of balanced between the two, that can help. Okay.
Okay.
The other is if you go through first and then just be patient and hang out and let them address coming through the threshold at their own pace, that can
Okay.
help. And here's where one of my favorite things is, if you have a helper dog, a resident dog, have your dog go through first and do that a lot. Have your dog come through and back and go and back and, play. Get your dog to come in and out until that other dog's like, look, that dog's not being killed by the threshold monster. I guess I'll go.
Okay.
So you can demonstrate that the threshold's okay.
Okay.
Probably the worst thing you could do, and I before I was learning this stuff, I did this, is like just make them go out. Pull them out or push them out or pick them up. That can actually really embed the fear of the threshold. So the patient, encouraging them, just opening that door and sitting on the other side. Now that it's getting hot, do that like early morning, but having them go through at their own pace, and then playing games at the door. And so things like when they do finally go through, you can start doing things like tossing treats and having them go get a treat, but don't do that until they actually have tried to go through once or twice on their own. Okay. Yeah, thresholds are a big thing for dogs.
Okay.
Anybody else? Great questions. This is the part I love. Okay. Kathy, that's a really good idea. Like putting something over the threshold so it looks continuous, or it looks like the same, fabric. That can really help, especially if it's the same texture of other things in the house and they're used to it. That's a great idea. Give that a shot. Yeah, I love it. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
What about, I saw the thing about pulling, chasing squirrels, pulling on the leash. Like,
Yeah.
my dog is all over the squirrels and the lizards and all the fun things.
Yep. So I guess if I said raise your hand, if that's true for your dog, probably 3/4 would raise their hand on this.
Mm-hmm.
Are you on walks when that happens? Or are you talking about in the backyard?
Both.
Okay. First of all, these guys are bred to be hunters, right? This is what their brain is for. So the moving critter they're wired to notice that. There's a certain amount of it that they should be allowed to do. Okay. Let them chase if they can't catch, right? You don't want them to get the
right.
That's the gross part and sad. But let them chase, let them do some of that. If it's not either obsessive to the point you're worried about the dog, if they're not catching the animal and eating them, that's, not good for anything. Because they do need that outlet. But if it's happening on walks and you're like, they won't even go on the walk with me. We'd have to do some training with some basics, either a great recall, come back. I need you to come back, a great leave it, right, to help them structure. And what we're doing is we're taking a yellow dog and we're putting structure around their behavior to get them out of that space, right? And then finally, one thing that you can do is a sniffari. And I don't know if you've heard that term before, and those of you who haven't, it just means a walk where the purpose of the walk is your dog gets to sniff. Most humans, when we leave our house with our dog, we have this path in mind. We're going to go down this way and take a left, and then that way and take a right. And we have an amount of time in our mind of what the walk is going to be. And that's actually the walk for you more than it is for the dog, because that's not how they walk. If your dog is left alone to walk themselves, they're going to do this. They're going to zigzag, and they're going to return and go back, and then go over here and come around. And they spend all their time sniffing this space, and then they'll advance. That is the most perfect exercise for a dog, is letting them sniff. Their brain is more olfactory system than it is any other system of their body. If they sniff, they're using tons of brain chemistry. They're using all their glucose. They are burning up energy as if you take them for a run. In fact, somebody did an experiment that said, if you run your dog versus if you let your dog sniff, what would happen? How much calories do they burn? And what they did was a 20-minute sniffari versus running a 10-block square, okay? The dogs burn the same amount of energy between sniffing and running. Okay. So why is your dog really trying to pull and go after those things? It's because he wants to burn some energy. That's one of the things. And he's built that way. If you give him the outlets, give him some outlets like sniff Aries, things he can chase, good. And then on walks, we're going to give him some cues when it's okay to go check it out and when it's not. That's when we're going to put the structure in place. So part of it is meet the need, and part of it is to put structure around it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think very soon we're going to do a leash walking webinar. So we'll
Okay,
address
great.
that.
Thank you.
That was a great question. Anybody else? This is the best part. Okay. So we're going to have 3 slides that are tables like this. And the table is addressing a problem behavior, kind of telling what state it is, giving us some management and training tools. And then, like you have been doing, if you have a great idea for management and training of that behavior, I want to hear it. Let's do this as a group and talk through what things can be done. Now, if you'll notice on this chart, there are no greens. We're not talking about the basic training of a dog that's in a good space. We're starting with yellow, the stuff that needs some help. And so in yellow, we have barking, which, that constant barking, especially with going after squirrels and barking, the bored barking, the demand barking, even the I'm defending my house barking, that's all yellow, all of it. So if we think about why is the dog barking, that's kind of going to determine which tools you use, right? So let's say it's a dog that is barking, just like Bob said, because the Amazon guy's coming. Well, we're going to use management tools like visual blocks, right? We might even use some white or brown noise to block out the sounds of trucks coming up and down the street. We might put a sign outside that says, please don't ring the doorbell. It makes my dogs go crazy. You can do that in front of the house, have them text you. And then you go into the training tools. And the training tools are giving the dog something to do with that energy. And we have pattern games that we teach that will provide, kind of an idea of where you can get those. We can do the thank you, like I talked about with Bob. Thank you for letting me know. Now stop barking. That's a great cue. We can also teach the dog that when they hear someone on the porch, they have to go to their mat and settle, or their bed and settle. It's called an environmental trigger. So I have one dog that does that. If someone comes to the door, they go and lie down because they know that's when they get treats. So you can train that behavior. So if it's a yellow, meaning the dog is active, you can manage the environment to reduce it, and then you provide an outlet for the energy. Does anyone have any remedies they've done for barking? And if you can identify the type of barking, that would help.
I have a question.
I was going to say, we use a lot of management. We have 3 neighbors that of the 4 that we share a fence that have dogs, and nobody seems to care if their dogs fence fight or bark at the fence except us.
Right.
So we actually put an interior fence that's about 4 feet from our standard wood structure. So our dogs can't get up to the fence.
Yeah.
And that actually really reduced, because the neighbors, we can't control what they do. So we can only control what we do. So putting that interior structure that we can control, and it keeps the dogs away from the fence and just makes it less interesting because they can't really get as close as they used to.
Yep. And that's the classic. Create a moat, and your dog will do better. That's one of the best ways to handle that. Sharon, what were you going to say?
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
We've had our dog 3 years, and my husband's never heard her bark, and I've only heard her bark twice. But my question is, if you teach a dog to go to its mat or bed when someone's on the porch, then they're not being a watchdog. I mean, it would be great to have our dog be able to, if she sees somebody coming to the door, at least bark to alert us, but not go crazy barking. But if you teach them to go to their mat, if somebody comes to the porch, I don't.
Yep. You're hitting on a really great point. I want my dogs to bark until I say stop barking.
Yeah.
So I use the thank you. Now, the mat cue, we usually wait to ask them to go to the mat until they've hit either person has hit the doorbell, or we say go to mat, or we say thank you.
Oh,
So we can
okay.
keep doing those. Yeah. So I think that's a fine point. I do want my dog to alert for me.
Yeah.
We live kind of down near the university. There's always people out there. So I do want my Rottweiler Great Dane mix to go woof, and but then stop. Right. Yeah. Fine point. Excellent point. Carolyn, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that we've incorporated the thank you cue with Bear, because he's very protective. And so we acknowledge, thank you for alerting us. And so he's learned that, okay, they're aware, my job is done, I can relax now. So that's been very helpful.
Hooray. And funny thing about dogs on the thank you cue is, if they don't think you have adequately checked out the threat, thank you is enough. You have to actually check the threat, because they want to know that you're doing security instead of them. They want to know they're safe.
That's very true.
Yeah, because I'll say thank you and like, no, you didn't address it. You need to get over there and look out that window. And I have gone to the window and gone, oh my gosh, a plastic bag. I get it. I would bark at that too. Thank you. And we move away. Yeah. And then
all right. I'm going to ask the question about that has definitely, I think, worsened over COVID, and that's the demand barking. I am nothing but a dog doorman. In, out, in, out, in, out, out, in, out.
Right.
And I am outnumbered. They are ganging up on me. And definitely, and the pointer mix is the worst one. I mean, hands down, the worst one. Okay. You know, and he waits until I'm on a call, and then it's, no, Mom, you can't talk to those people. You must go and put me out. But 30 seconds later, I need to come right back in. But now I also need to come out. Oh my God, it's exhausting. What the hell?
Oof.
And I try we've got Kongs, we've got the things, we've got the Chewies, we've got all the things. All of those things are immediately rejected. And this is what must be done right this minute.
So yes, they have trained you very well.
They have. I sit, I stay. I'm really.
They need to give you biscuits. So there's this you could work out. Now, there are a couple things. They're demand barking because it's not the Kong that they're wanting. They're wanting the attention, right? They want you.
Yes.
So if you provide the Kong, they're like, meh, I really just wanted your attention. It's not even about the door as much. So take a weekend where when they bark, you don't do anything, even if they bark a long time. Break the barking, okay? Now, don't say no to them. Don't acknowledge them. It's going to make you crazy. Put earplugs in. Do whatever you need to.
I mean, they just illegalized marijuana in Texas. How am I supposed to do this shit? What the hell?
Okay, so we got to get you gabapentin and trazodone.
Exactly.
And it's the reason why is if you do give in on that, now that they've learned they can bark and you'll open the door. If you wait 5 minutes and then give in, they realize that they have to bark for 5 minutes now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think they'll wait me out. I'm pretty sure Pongo is in. We can try this, but I think that man can go forever.
Yes.
I've tried 30 minutes.
Yep. Then
I know I've gone 30 minutes.
You want to do distraction as well. So you've got this, you can't do this while you're working because you're going to be really frustrated, right? So you have to set up how do I reverse the door demand? And what do I want to do instead? So you have to neutralize that demand for the door by not giving it to them. And then you want to give them a alternate behavior and reward them for doing it. Okay. So if they bark, ask for a sit. And then reward them. So you give them an alternate. And then it did pop up.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah. What about squirting them? Here's what happens.
I'm not so love.
If they're already expressing frustration through the demand barking, punishment, whether it's barking, yelling at them, which they interpret as barking, squirting them, telling them no, that kind of stuff. That just heightens the energy. It pushes them further into yellow.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep generating that energy. So you have to actually, you're the one to bring calm into the situation.
Well, and Poppet and Dooley would love it. So that wouldn't, they would like, ah,
yay, water, right?
Water, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a tough one because you have to outlast them. That's really hard. But give them an alternate behavior.
Probably, yeah. If I give, but it again during a webinar, I can't go, hold on just a second. I've got to go and, do training treats with my dog. I also had tried with it. I've seen where where people put the little earmuffs on them sometimes to see if they, if he's got his thunder vest on right now because of the thunder. Doesn't really help that much, but he is a dog that needs a lot of firm pressure and a lot of reassurance and in life, just in general. So the other ones don't do that. They don't bark for the door. It's just Pongo.
So what I would say is Congo probably has some underlying anxiety in general, right?
Nope.
And if we address the underlying anxiety, those other behaviors will settle down.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about putting him on some Prozac and stuff. So,
and if you start listing his underlying behaviors and go, where does this fit? Is it red? Is it yellow? Is it green? You'll probably notice that this dog has a lot of yellow behaviors.
Yeah,
that's an indication of anxiety. So let's address the anxiety and see if those behaviors shake out on their own.
Yeah,
they usually do.
Good idea. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Great question. Ooh, I love these questions.
Don't want to miss. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here, Debbie. Mona had a question in the chat about other GSP dog has something my adolescent GR wants barking. GR can't stand to be in my crate barking.
There's a lot to that. So in the crate, when is he in the crate? I think I would ask those questions. Like, when's it happening? How long is he in there? Has he been trained to associate the crate with fun and enjoyment, or is it isolating? If it's isolating, you're really hitting that vagus nerve yellow where he's barking because he's stressed. So we have to reduce the stress and the barking will reduce. So we can talk about that. I can help and Diane can help. Great questions.
Yeah, so when I first got him, the crate was mostly just used for him to sleep in at night. And he really did pretty well. I mean, and everything. But then all of a sudden, at this point, I don't even remember what happened, but he was like, I'm done with this. And he starts barking and, and I just have to get some sleep. I ended up getting a taller pin that's not so closed in, as a crate. It's a taller and bigger pin, an X pin kind of thing. And now he sleeps in that and has been doing pretty well. But here lately, he did get sick. He had an upset stomach, had some diarrhea and stuff. But now he was barking, with all that. I understand with him being sick that's a whole different issue. But now at least once or twice a night, he's wanting up and out. And, it all started with that diarrhea issue. I think he's discovered he's gets some attention.
Yes.
And, but and then he's only in it when I'm gone, and usually when I'm gone, I'm not gone that long, but the most of the barking is now at night.
Yeah, you actually just answered it. If they're only ever in some type of confinement, crate, X pen, or a room, when you're gone, they associate it with isolation. Even at night, he feels isolated because that's his isolating space. So the way to help him is to raise the value of being in that space and have him in there when you're home and create a sanctuary for him in there. It sounds good. It smells good. You can put the pheromones in there, give him something to do that he likes. And then you put him in incrementally very short times and bring it times up longer and longer. So that he's only, the first time he's only in there for a minute and out. It's going to baffle him when you do that. Wait, I'm out? Cool. You know, so you want him to start going, I could come out at any time. So now I'm not being stressed. My anxiety is not up about being isolated in this crate or this X pen. If the space they're going into is the indicator that you're going to be gone, it is very stressful. They're in yellow. They're very upset. And that's why you're getting that barking. So turn it into a fun place to be. Play games with him in and out. Toss toys, toss treats. Give him something like a really great bone to chew that he can spend time in there doing something cool. But right now he thinks, okay, this is here. I don't get nice things.
I do that right now while I'm at home with them.
Great. In the crate? Good.
Well, it's not the, I'm at the, it was a question. Do it while I'm at home.
Yes,
right
sorry.
now.
Yes, you got it.
And then for just those short times and everything. Because yeah, I mean, I give them treats, you know, when they go in.
Yep.
And I'll throw treats at them, you know, for a few minutes before I leave and all that kind of stuff. But then I do end up leaving. So, okay, yeah. I'll work on.
Treats go so fast that doesn't mark time for them. They can vacuum that up in, 0.6 seconds. Yeah. Right? So you want something that's like a longer lasting, one of those wobble kongs that kicks out food or, something. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things you can give them. Entertainment. I used to play a particular radio station every time I left. This is again before I was a trainer. And I realized that when I turned on the radio station, my dogs started panting. And it's like they associated that sound, radio, with my absence. So I knew I'd paired that. So I started changing the sounds. And I also started giving them things to do. And it made a big difference in their anxiety. Especially demand barking. If they're not sleeping the whole night, one thing I would suggest is checking to make sure that they don't have a UTI. That's one of the first things we check. Sweet. Let's talk about jumping, our favorite.
Can I enter a question about not sleeping at night?
Please do.
We have a lab that gets up 5 out of 7 nights. And a lot of times she goes and poops.
Time do you feed her?
4 in the afternoon.
That's why. It's time to poop. She's processed it.
Eat her later.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. If you feed her early and you make sure before you go in for bed, she must poop before she comes into bed. Okay. So if you feed her at 4, and bedtime is 9 or 10, you're going to have to take her outside on leash and hold out until she actually goes to the bathroom and then bring her in. So you want her to void before bedtime. Or you feed her later and then she's going to need to poop first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Okay. So really that's just a function of time of when she's being fed. Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing with dogs is generally they need to go to the bathroom within 20 minutes after eating. And then again, about 4 hours after eating. And then again, if they haven't had anything, about 8 hours after eating. So she's probably get that last one in the middle of the night for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Play around with time.
Okay.
Cool. Jumping? Jumping straightforward. Diane and I teach a type of having the dog not jump on you, a body language that I think works. I'm sure you've been told if your dog jumps on you, turn your back. That's one that I've heard a lot of. Or just push them off. Well, if you've got an adolescent dog that's really excited and you use your hands at all when they're jumping on you, they're like, sweet, we're playing. And they're just going to keep doing it. If you turn your back, that is the universal dog signal for chase me. So they're like, yeah, you turn your back. Yes, this is the game. When adult dogs tell another dog, get off me, what they do is slightly move into that dog's space and use their own body pressure for that dog to move away. It's like being on the subway. You know, if you're holding on and there's someone too close, you just kind of put your elbow out and they move away. You use your body bubble to move your dog. I have heard people say, move forward and lift your knee and do like a soccer punch in the chest. Don't do that. That's going to hurt you and your dog. But doing a slight hands up and a slight move in can encourage the dog to get off you and not jump. Now, here's the real thing though. Your dog cannot jump if they're sitting. They can't jump if they're lying down. So what you want to do is ask for a different behavior instead of just saying no or off. So the dog jumps and you say no, they're like, no what? No, I don't know what you're talking about. If you say off, well, that's off that one time. I'm going to jump right back up. I did get off. I'm getting off. I'm getting on again. You say off and they did. They're going to do it again. So instead, ask them to sit, have treats, and get their booty on the floor. They can't jump and sit at the same time. The other thing you can do is scatter treats, either on, before you or behind you. They're not going to jump if there are treats on their ground. Their nose is going to go down. That's a prevention. Then you can start teaching them how to greet you. And that means that if you're greeting excitedly, your dog's going to jump because you're winding them up. So you want to greet them calmly. My family was notorious for this. They come in the door, Rooster! And my dog's like, yeah! So now he gets to jump, and now he thinks jumping is how he gets greeted. So calm coming in, bringing them out of yellow into green, keeping it down. Calm departures. Not, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss you so much. You do bougie, bougie, bougie. Just calm departures. They will not jump as much. And then finally, there is a game where you can teach your dog to greet with a go say hi cue, where they keep their nose towards the ground and they sniff people. And we can show you that game in the future because I've got polite greetings as a webinar coming up. So that one, we're going to actually hit that pretty hard. Counter surfing. Oof. I have bad news about counter surfing. If they get anything, they've been rewarded and it's a jackpot. So it was really exciting. And so that behavior has now been hardcore programmed. And the best way to get rid of counter surfing is make sure that the next time they look at the counter, there's no food there. And the next time and the next time, so they do not get rewarded. So when we talked last time about prepping the house for a new dog, part of it is making sure the counters are not rewarding, okay? Preventing counter surfing is way better than fixing it. Now, once you have a dog that counter surfs, you actually have to either create barriers so the dog can't go into the kitchen and it diminishes their behavior over time, or you have to supervise. They're not allowed in the kitchen unless someone's around. Or you can teach them games while you're prepping food. You can have a little bowl of their treats, and you can have them doing things instead of focusing on what you're doing. And then finally, my favorite is my dogs are not allowed to cross the threshold of my kitchen. That's like a barrier. It's an out cue. So I've been trained that they actually just put their little toes right on the threshold and they know they can't cross. That's a cue for them. And I've taught them to stay. They can't do it. But if I'm not home, I'm not there to enforce that. And I have to be absolutely certain they can't get anything off my counters or they will surf. I had a dog that could climb on top of the counter and she would climb on. I'd come home and she's standing on the counter. And I also came home when she was standing on the fridge and she had managed to get the freezer door open and was shopping. So management was making sure she couldn't get on the counters. And also I had to put a truck strap around the freezer and make it so she couldn't get in. So that's one that is it's a yellow behavior because they're active. It's also mostly because they're bored. So they're counter surfing because it's like, I'm bored. I guess I'll go in the kitchen and see if that's entertaining. How many of you do that? I do. If you're bored, go check the fridge. Right? So it's the same behavior. So you want to either be there to supervise or prevent, and then you can provide some other behaviors.
One comment I'll make on this, because we've had this happen within GRR with foster dogs. It often isn't just even food that they'll take off the counter. So that's, if you have a dog that's counter surfing, I think people will often misinterpret that it's just the food items that they remove. And we actually had a foster that, thank God, the foster had a camera, and she looked at it in the moment she looked at it, and the foster dog had taken like a knife, a butcher knife.
Wow.
Standing there holding the knife in his mouth by the handle, thankfully. And she had just sat down in the dentist chair, decided to glance at the camera. And this was a known counter surfer, but decided to glance at the camera and saw him standing there with this knife in his mouth, and was able to beeline home. And the knife handle was chewed. Thankfully, nobody was murdered in the process. But when she sent us the video of the camera, and it was kind of around Halloween, and it took us a minute to figure out it wasn't fake. This was a real knife. And once we realized it was real, my heart stopped. And she had the thing, like, I washed the knife, left it sitting on the counter, didn't think that he would take anything that wasn't food related, but he was a known counter surfer.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, they'll take whatever they can. Absolutely. And they'll get clever. I mean, if they can reach it, they'll take it. I've had dogs actually work together where the one that could climb on the counter would get up there and push stuff off for everybody. And so they would get into cahoots on what they would take. So I had to have bear counters. So that's a good point, Michelle. I love the fact that he was holding a knife when Chucky was his name.
It's funny now because nothing happened, but I mean, seeing that photo, everybody that saw it was like, that's fake, right? There's no way that's real. No, it was a real butcher knife.
Oof.
Yeah. Wow. That dog also ended up at the ER for taking a can of chocolate frosting off the counter and eating a can of chocolate frosting before the knife. So we knew that he was a counter surfer.
Yeah.
And there was still things that he could get. Anyway, the dog's fine.
Yeah. And that's a hyperactive yellow dog that's bored, looking for things to do. And so they're going to search for it. And if you can address that hyperactive seeking behavior by giving them something to do when you're gone, you're going to deal with that and also manage the environment. That's great. Good point. Nipping and mouthing, but not biting. We're not going to talk about biting. It is a yellow. Nipping and mouthing can go back to the fact that the puppy did not get appropriately weaned and is a little bit needy. And that mouthing is actually just, oh, look at that. So I'm going to interrupt. Julie said, Max just ran to the window and barked. And Bob said, oh, I got to just cut off. Bob said, Max said, oh, I see. And what happened? Hold on. There we go.
And the barking stopped.
And the barking stopped. Yay! That's wonderful. That makes me so happy. Okay. So nipping and mouthing can be an oral need, like they didn't get nursing properly. And so you have to really think about, why are they mouthing? And can I provide something to satisfy that base need? Can I give them something to lick? Can I give them something to chew? Can I offer them a toy instead? And are they trying to get my attention? Are they really looking for attention from me? So if you can address those needs and say, yeah, I've got those handled, then it may just be high arousal. They're just excited. And if that's the case, don't play wrestle. Don't get them hyped up where they feel like they have to mouth to get the energy out. So dogs that mouth or nip, they are over their threshold, they are dysregulated, and we want to keep them in the green. So the games you play with them are calming games, not hype games. So you wouldn't want to play, I'm going to wrestle with you, or I'm going to tug and growl with you and make it a big deal. You might want to play chase the rolling ball, not the bouncing ball. You might want to play some games with some toys where they're lying down and you do little tugs instead of big growly tugs. You just kind of dial it down and it'll reduce the nipping and biting, mouthing. Redirect for sure. Offer them something else to do if they're in the moment. So get them to get something else in their mouth. Bye, Gabby. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Redirection is the number one. Now, I found that we have a really nippy bitey dog, then I'm going to give them exercise and movement with structure. They need an outlet for their energy that isn't wrestling with their mouth. I'm also going to give them sniffaries, things to do. I have right now my foster nips when he's super excited, and he gets you right here, right on that soft, horrible part of the arm. And the way we've worked on it is he gets excited and he will chase you. If you turn to play with him, then he nips. So when he gets excited to chase, if you hold absolutely still and ignore him, he will settle down, and then we can do other stuff.
I've got a question on the mouthing.
Yes.
We have a dog that, of the dozen people that routinely come to our home, there's like 2 that they mouth, that she mouths, and then like she wants to take them on a walk.
Does she grab your hand and move and pull them?
Yes, she
Yeah.
will.
Okay. What's their relationship? Have they played before? Have they seen the people before?
Oh yeah, they see him quite often.
Okay. That's just, I'm so happy to see you. I want to play. So redirect with a toy. If they go for the hand, then you just bring a toy over and have that person offer the toy. And also you could have that person do some slow vagus massage, like please pet her on her neck and do slow strokes on her back while you're holding that toy. So you're helping her go from yellow to green.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff. She's just really excited about that guest.
Yeah, it's always the same 2. It's of a dozen people, like I say, it's always the same 2.
Yep. Alyssa, that's a great question. What are examples of movement games? Actually, Diane, you want to do that? She's a pro at that.
We missed Mona actually was right before Alyssa. So I apologize, Alyssa. We'll get back to you on the movement games, but Mona had a question before that. Can you see it?
Let me see. My screen's weird.
Okay.
Very good, Mona. Got it.
I'll read it to you.
Harness and leash for both dogs. And the adolescent is putting the harness and leash in their mouth, of course. And I can't put in your shoes without having. Okay. So that harness means we're going to go do fun stuff. So we need to make the harness boring, which means you take it out and then set it on the table where they can't reach it and ignore it. Or you put it on the ground and ignore it. You take it out and you put it back and you ignore it. They don't go for a walk every time they see the harness. The harness now needs to become something they see all the time, that you touch all the time, and they only go out sometimes when you have it. That'll reduce their excitement about the harness. The reason why you're getting a mouth on the harness is they're trying to control your speed of getting the harness. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And so they're grabbing the harness from you. So the minute they put their mouth on the harness, you drop it and we're not going out. And it doesn't mean you tell them we're not going out or they're wrong. You just drop it and don't go out. If they go after your shoes, you just don't go out. Not for that day, but for maybe 5 minutes, and then you try again. So you want that a direct consequence of putting their mouth on the harness, that you stop the process. Get up and go get a glass of water instead. And be consistent with that until they're like, oh, okay, I guess if I put my mouth on this, I'm actually slowing it down. And that'll help.
Right, great. Thank you.
You bet. Now, Alyssa, yeah.
Okay.
So,
for Alyssa, for the movement game, one of my favorites, it's so simple, but it's so much fun to do with your dog, is you have them facing towards you and you have a treat. You're going to take the treat and you're going to set it on the ground right in front of them while they go after the treat. As that's happening, you actually walk around behind them and wait for them to come and turn around and look at you. What you're teaching them is you're teaching them to direct towards you, which helps with communication. If your dog is facing you and looking at you, you can then communicate what you want with them. So it's one of those games where you're going, hey, treat here, Just put it on the ground. As they're getting it, you walk behind them. They're going to naturally want to turn around and face you. You mark them when they turn around right there. You say, yes. You're basically saying, yes, you turned and looked at me, and then a treat on the ground again and turn back around and do the same thing. That's a movement game where they're moving and you're directing them by utilizing the treats.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense. But that's a fun one, really simple one.
Yeah, and we have many of those, and I'd be happy to give a handout to Michelle of Diane. We can do a little picture of those.
Yeah.
There's a nice handout of many little games, and they're very short. They don't cost extra money. You don't have to buy anything, and it'll give you lots of fun stuff to do.
Yeah.
There's
a question from Laura. Can you do that, Debbie? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, handout. Yes, you got it, guys. We will do that for you. And let me see what I get here. Laura, where to go? Will you read it from my screen's doing weird stuff?
Oh, okay. So let me read it to you. Where does this behavior fall? Poppet will try to share her tennis ball with us by putting them in your face.
Right.
She's a ball-aholic, sorry. Took me a second there, and gives the ball the ball really well outside. But there are times when she also does the unusual inside the.
So I think I can see this, Laura, that basically Poppy's bringing the ball, stuffing it in your face, and you're like, hey, thanks. It's definitely yellow because, hey, let's go. Let's just move to it, right? She's trying to train you. She's like, obviously you haven't noticed that the ball has not been moving for me, and I need you to do something with the ball. So she's bringing it to you. Because she's trying, you don't want to say no, bad dog, or any of that stuff, because she's really trying to communicate. But if you aren't able to do it at that time, I would offer a different thing for her to do, like ask her to sit and then give her a treat, a puzzle, a chew or something, and don't touch the ball. If you reach for the ball, touch the ball or whatever, you are connecting to her desire to play with the ball. And so she'll be very disappointed if you don't. So you just ignore the ball. Ball doesn't exist. Hey, come over and sit. Good girl. Let me give you something else to chew or something to do. It's not magic. It's not going to work immediately the first time because she's pretty sure if she shoves the ball in your face, she's going to get a reaction. Thanks, Jim. So that reaction has to be a calm one where you offer a different behavior that's rewarding. Give her something that's rewarding. Outside, if she's giving you the ball and she's willing to play, inside she's being a little bit louder because when you're inside, you're busy. When you're outside with her, you're doing stuff with you. You're doing stuff with her. So, she's being a very clear communicator, and that's the yellow. It's not very polite. And even in the dog world, it's not very polite. If she did it to another dog, the dog would be like, no, or they try to take the ball. That's a good question. Okay. Have I missed any questions?
I don't think so.
Oh, good. Okay. So we're going to move to trash, and getting the trash is like we've talked about. If they're chewing on things or they're getting into the trash, half of that is management. You have to secure things, get out of the way. Often it is a nervous behavior, especially with the chewing. Get them appropriate things to chew, lots of appropriate things to chew, and especially when you are gone, secure your dog so that they can't get to things that you don't want them to chew. So that might be crate training, pen training, but make sure, like we talked before, that is an experience that they enjoy, and getting them something to chew so they are choosing appropriate things. And of course you can protect your furniture, you can wrap things up, whatever you need to, but we want to make sure that underlying anxiety is being addressed. So why are they chewing? It's because you're gone. Is it because they're experiencing some isolation distress? Are they bored? We want to look at that core behavior too. They're doing it for a reason. We have more. Ooh, well, hell, I just drove fast on that one. Okay, there we go. Of these, now we're going to get into some red here in a second. Door dashing doesn't mean they're out earning extra money. This is when they are just taken off. I do have a door dasher, so I've had to create like an airlock around my front door. Yeah. Oh yeah. The value vet supplies is good. Diane, good suggestion. There's actually a new baby gate that you can attach to the door frame and attach to the door itself, and it expands when you open the door, that prevents the dog from going through the door, which is a phenomenal thing. And I'll leave a link for you on that. That particular setup is about $100. It's kind of expensive, but for dogs that truly just bolt, it's been a real game changer for people. What is door dashing? Generally, it is a bored dog, and they know outside is fun, so they're taking off. However, I'm going to say this: a new dog, foster dog or adopted dog in your home, if they're a red dog and they're shut down, they are a risk of door dashing as well, out of fear. If a loud noise happens, if they're trying to get away from you, something happens as you're trying to put the leash on, they're going to bolt out of fear, and they're just going to run crazily, and they're going to be hard to get back. So door dashing is something that I want to make sure you do a lot of work to prevent. And what I mean by airlock is baby gates, like on a hallway before they get to the door, or like the door expander, or you make sure that you're going out a door of the garage, so you have the garage as a buffer, those kinds of things. Door dashing is, for a bored dog, is they're doing it joyfully when they go out, and you can usually get them back because they're having a good time and they want you to be part of that. The door dashing that is scary is the dog that's dashing out of the door because they saw another dog and they're reactive.
That's my issue.
Yeah, that is terrifying. And so making sure the environment prevents them getting out that way is really important. And I'm going to say things like, your dog should be confined if you're going to go in and out of the door for groceries. Don't rely on being able to tell the dog no. Make sure they are shut behind a door and it can't be opened. And some dogs can open doors, so put a baby gate there too. If you've got guests coming and there's going to be at all a stalling around the door, the dog needs to be put up. So anytime an exit door is open, the dog is secured. Now they can be secured because you have a leash on them. If you think if they're dashing, you can manage that. They could be stationed, which is where you have an eye bolt, like in the baseboard, and their leash is clipped to that, so they can't get away. That's stationing. Or they're behind some type of barrier. And that's super scary because once they dash, it is really hard to get them back if they're reactive. And if they're doing it for fun, you can usually get them back after they've had fun, and then you're really mad. It's usually they had a great time and you have not. And then this comes down to, if you're addressing the needs, often it is that they just need things to do. So start training them. Teach them manners around the door. Teach them the wait game when you get to the door. If they have to wait before you go out. Teach them the name game so they're paying attention to you. Teach a great recall, and so that you have all those embedded. And again, that's one that if you say you have a door dashing dog, that's the first thing we're going to address because it's such a big safety issue. Digging. Oh, Diane, you remember the dog we saw this last week that was a digger? Oh my gosh. Almost always digging is boredom. It can sometimes be an OCD anxiety behavior, but it's almost always boredom. Best ever resolve for digging is give them things to dig. In other words, you can get a box full of popcorn and the shipping popcorn, put little treats or kibble in them, let them dig through it. You can use packing materials and let them shred and dig the packing materials. You can get a baby pool and put sand in it and let them dig in that. Giving them a digging outlet is a really good thing to do. Now, if you can't do that, then what I would recommend is giving them another activity when you catch them digging. So instead of no, stop it, you're going to immediately give them a game to play. And so we'll start picking some games out of the list and say, we're going to, start playing toss. So we're going to get, them redirected and get their energy out. But it also means you have to supervise them whenever you put them in the backyard to prevent digging. I have heard that this works and haven't tried it yet. Some trainers are saying that if your dog is digging, you can take their feces and put it in their dig spots and they will not dig. I didn't try it, but my friend tried it with her dog, and her dog just kept selecting new places to dig.
That's what we tried that, and that's exactly what happened. It just went somewhere else.
Yeah.
We just had more holes.
Yeah. And
Yes,
I've
it didn't work.
had people put cayenne pepper in the dig holes, which with dogs, if they have an allergy to it, it can really, they inhale it. It's not great. It's not something I would really recommend. Digging is about boredom. So figure out how to get your dog enrichment and make sure you supervise. Usually, if they're, once you kind of get them out of that yellow zone into a green zone, the digging will drop off. If they're persistent diggers, that means there's a lot of things that we can, we'll have to train. We'll have to train some good leave-its and great recalls. And if they're trying to dig to escape, it's not about digging. It's about the escape. And that's more like a DoorDash dog. We're worried about why they're trying to get out and need to address that.
So a question on the digging, because we had a golden who he liked to dig and then just lay in the hole. So we just thought, he's just trying to cool off.
Yep.
I didn't know if he was necessarily bored or really just wanted to have a cooler spot where there could have been 15, other spots, but and we just let him because we gave up having a nice yard with a long time ago. But that was his thing, was to dig a hole big enough so he could just lay in it.
Yep. And that's actually, dogs are not den animals. We think they're den animals. It's the myth. They're actually what they call foxhole animals. They want an indention so they can be cool, but they can still see. And so that is a normal, healthy dog behavior, just like digging is. So yeah, you can either set up, I have a dog that I have a dog bed that I've attached a cooling blanket to, and I put that on in the yard, and he stopped digging. He's laying on the cooling blanket. He can see his domain. He's happy. So you can address that. And you can, like you did, Michelle, like he's healthy and it's cool, I'm going to let him do it. If you want a really nice yard, you can provide a spot that they can dig. This is your bed spot. You can dig your hole spot, and then stick him to it through with supervision. But yes, he is trying to reach cool dirt so he can hang out. And I've done things like wet down the bed spots and let it overnight. And so when they sit down in it, it is cool, which discourages them digging somewhere else. If they have a nice spot, they won't make multiple. So it's a good survival. Fence fighting, I think we get called for fence fighting almost as much as reactivity. And you already talked about this, Michelle. The absolute best thing to get a dog that isn't yellow fence fighting is the visual block, some type of extra fence, a way to keep them away from it. I've been working with a person who has a cane corso, and on the other side of her fence, they have a mastiff. The dogs are actually tearing the fence apart, trying to get to each other. She came out with an ingenious motion detector.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. He came out with a motion detector, and they actually have the sprinkler come on when the dogs approach the fence. So it's not a direct spray, but the sprinkler just comes on and dogs get wet and they move away from the fence. So that's been the only way they've been able to get dogs away from the fence. Usually fence fighting has less to do about the other dog than the barrier itself. Usually they just want to see the other dog. But since that's not possible most of the time, getting them away from the fence and then teaching the cues of getting them to come back to you, getting them playing games with you in the backyard and ignore that dog, getting them to notice the dog is there, but then re-engage with you instead. So these are all games that you'll see, the engage, disengage game, etc. So it's about giving them something to do. When it becomes red, and I don't mean red as in they're going to go fight, but when they fence fight and then they start to shut down, they stop fence fighting. It's because they feel unsafe because the dog on the other side of the fence is scary. So that's when we'd have to talk to a behaviorist, because that shutdown is often really terrible. Alyssa, what you got there? Oh yeah. 5-year-old will often try to correct my 3-year-old's puppy, like, oh yeah, puppy-like behavior towards me. Okay. If he's excited and tries to climb her mouth on me, she'll gently hurt him off. It's quite effective. Yeah, she's being a good dog. It's okay. Here's what I'm going to say. She's telling the puppy, you're being rude. She's telling the puppy the behavior is rude. She's also resource guarding you. This is my person, and I don't want you to do this. So if she comes between you when you're giving that dog affection and she's trying to cut off, then you want to discourage that, because that is competition and resource guarding. But if your puppy is being rude, jumping on you, licking you don't like it, and she's cutting in between, she's actually doing some really good mama dog behavior. So that would be a question of what's the intent and what's the energy, and how does your other dog take it? If it's smooth and everybody's good, it's okay. If it seems like she only really does it when you're giving affection, then she's being jealous and is trying to get that other dog to lose out, to move away. That's a great question. Marking and accidents. These are red. Marking is not a positive behavior. It's a shutdown behavior. The dog is now, starting to figure out, I have to set my environment. I have to close down my environment, and it leads to some really negative behaviors. So when a dog is marking or having accidents inside, the best way to manage it, period, is to go all the way back to redoing pottying training, all the way as if that dog has never had potty training. So you set up the 2-hour schedule. You set up, every time they play, every time they eat, every time they've had a big drink, you're taking them outside, trying to reset that. Thanks, Carolyn. So the marking is red. Accidents are red. They always involve checking with a vet first before we do anything. Then we go into a training routine. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the hiding and shutdown. Any dog that is shut down, that is hiding back to you, not able to move, not eating, this is definitely a call to a behaviorist like me, Diane, or a vet. There's something there, and we want to help the dog. And what's really crazy, like Kathy said earlier, sometimes we can give them, temporary medication that brings them out of that shutdown, and they bloom, and you don't need to do much of anything else. So when you see these red behaviors, marking, accidents, and hiding or shutdown, please reach out. Those are the ones, like, don't delay. We want to hear how that's going, and so we can help. And definitely reach out to the behavior team right away.
Question on the marking, because we do often get older male dogs that aren't neutered.
Yeah.
So, they're going to get neutered much later in life. How much of that is a factor where it's just maybe a behavior they've practiced?
Yes.
Because, clarify that. Is that also a factor because they're being neutered later in life? Because I've heard that, and we've often thought that, and, we've had some vets tell us that too. So I just want to make sure I have the right train of thought, that that's something. Neutering isn't necessarily going to fix it, but will it? What are we dealing with in that case?
Neutering will not fix it. It is not related to that cycle. So most male dogs out in their territory mark their territory to tell other dogs they're here. And it's really interesting. The dog that pees the highest on whatever surface that is the best dog in the group. So that's why you'll see Chihuahuas stand on, try to flip themselves upside down to pee high.
Leaning over.
Yeah. So that's communication, and that is normal. Inside the house, it's not communication unless you have inter-dog fighting or inter-dog stress. So that'd be the reason why I'd want to hear right away is if you've got a dog that's marking, I need to know, is it inter-dog stress? And if it's inter-dog stress, we have to manage that. If it is, he's just marking because he wasn't house trained, we go back to house training. But oh my gosh, he's an adult male and he's used to marking. Inside the house, the dog shouldn't be doing that. Here's why. When they are trained in the nest with their mama, they are trained to go to the bathroom outside the nest at a certain age. So your dog automatically starts to assess, okay, I'm in this house. What part of this house is nest and what part of the house is outside the nest? That's why some dogs will go to a farthest room to have an accident, because they're trying to get outside the nest. They're trying to get away from that space. But a male dog that is marking inside that space, there's a stress relationship there somehow. He's stressed about his environment. It's a stress between multiple dogs, or the dog has not been appropriately potty trained. All three of those would be red zone.
So you know, one of the most common things that we get with people coming to adopt, I think probably that are very specific, that say, oh, I don't want a male, and they want a female. And we say, why? Well, because we don't want a male dog that's going to mark. And I've had multiple males. I've never had a male mark in my home. Outside, I don't care. They can pee on every tree if that's what you want to do. I have no issue. But it's such a strong thought with a lot of people that male dogs mark. And we have so many people that are adamant that they don't want a male dog for that reason. They just think they're going to mark. So I don't know if it's just they've had experiences and they think every male dog does, but that's a real difficult one for us with people so adamant about against male Goldens. And I think I love the males. I'll take a male over a female any day.
Male dogs are so cuddly and sweet. They really are. And yeah, so they may well have had an experience with a dog that marks, and maybe they had inter-dog stress in their household or whatever that created the marking. And so they just extrapolate males pee in the house, males pee on things. Only if there's a stressor. And what vets are saying is once you castrate a male, the testosterone in the body drops over time, but it takes, months. It's not like it's instant. And so as that testosterone drops, their desire to mark for communication, for being part of the pool that can reproduce, that drops. So you'll see them sometimes less willing to mark or less eager to mark outside. It can be habitual though. I have a dog that was neutered at 8 years, and he wants to mark everywhere outside, and he thinks he's all that and extra chips, but that's okay. He does not mark inside. So I'm going to say again, if they're marking inside, there is a stressor or they have incomplete potty training. Yep.
May I add something?
Absolutely.
This is addressing what Michelle was talking about. Michelle, I think I used to be one of those people that didn't want a male. I think it's not necessarily a myth, but I used to think that males would be sniffing on women when they came to the house, or I don't remember if I thought they'd be marking, but we ended up rescuing a male. He might have been 4 or 5 at the time, and he was an awesome dog. He never did any of that. So I think it's kind of a myth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, if a dog is doing that, it's really rude behavior, even in the dog world. So dogs sniff each other behind to greet, but a dog that spends a lot of time sniffing the genital area is going to get snapped at. So it is also rude in the puppy, in the dog world. So we're going to work on things like, that's rude and you don't do that. But a lot of people have had dogs be that rude. Yeah. Would you say, Susan? Oh, yes. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. Yeah. Girl dogs are bitches. And I have said when people have 2 girl dogs that are fighting, it's like, sometimes bitches just be bitches. It's cool. Because girl dogs don't necessarily get along as easily as a mixed group. All right, we just have a tiny bit more, and we've hit all of our Q&A. I want to leave it open now. This is the last of what I want to talk about, is kind of turning it back to you, which you've been doing through this whole conversation. Is I want you to think about that green, yellow, and red in your household, and that your goal is to have the dogs, even though they slide through yellow sometimes and into red, is to help them get back to green by providing avenues, giving them the opportunity to go back to that green, calm state, that entertained state, not high entertained, but brain's doing stuff, and possibly even getting them into this calmest state, sleep and relaxation. So anytime your dog hits a yellow, think, what need is not being met? Where's the stressor? What can I do to provide that step back down to green? I'm opening the floor. If you have any other questions, comments, or stories, let's have them. Let's do the little bit here.
I know we're going to talk about this. I think our July webinar is going to be talking on enrichment and socialization. One of the things that I see very commonly, just as I've been matching with Gold Ribbon for, 12, 13 years, Goldens are retrievers, and people think, oh, I have to throw the ball. Like that's what I need to do because that's what Goldens do.
Right.
And so, and then what I see is then they're creating that aroused state, and they're and I tell people, like, you're just, you're training an athlete.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you're throwing that ball. So I think that, you guys have really done a lot of focus on teaching other things, teaching, and I think people don't always realize sometimes you have to teach a dog just how to do nothing. It's okay if they can just, I love it when my dogs do nothing. Like that's my favorite time of the day, but, and I love to interact with them, but I can't sit here and entertain them 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I have a 19-year-old puppy that people rave about. Oh my God, he's so calm. Like, why is he so calm? I'm like, I don't know. He just seems like a normal dog to me, but he's just an easy, calm golden. But we don't do those types of things that create that arousal. We just ignore him a lot. I mean, I love my dog more than anybody, but we just want him to just go do your thing, and that's okay.
That's a great point. And the thing is that we tend to think we want our dogs in yellow. We want them to play. We want them to run. They want to interact with dogs. We want them to pay attention to us. No, you want your dog in green, which is a calm, relaxed, confident dog. And so that flips the script. A lot of people are like, I have to provide this dog outlets. Kinda, you have to provide the dog a way to get to green. If the outlet isn't the outlet itself, it's a way to get to green. It's a way to get down to that calm state. So if you're throwing the ball, are you throwing the ball and keeping your dog in yellow, or are you throwing them to give them an outlet so that they can return to green? Yeah, it's a huge point.
Yeah.
And Diane and I are like all about calm, and we can't wait to do that. And we want calm dogs. That is our mission. Put on the soapbox and yes, brother, and we want calm dogs. Such a good point.
So true. Yeah. It's hard because, again, we tend to think of dogs having to be active. And I have 2 husky mixes. Talk about active. They know how to do active. That's kind of in them. So by working on the balance of that, working on the calm teaches them that that's an option too. And that's what, with training and practice is, again, what does calm look like? What does it mean? Most dogs only go into the calm space when they're wanting to sleep, or, they decide this is a good time. And we want them to understand that it is positive and you can do it at any time. And it's like, what?
And what's nice is calm is rewarding. Calm is self-rewarding, and the dogs learn to be on a cycle of calm and reward, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else?
That's funny. Our dog is always calm, and I wish she was more playful.
Yeah, there's that. That can be personality, right?
Yeah.
Lena, what were you going to say?
If you do have a dog, somebody mentioned it earlier, that that is a crotch sniffer when he's especially with women. Do you have any tips for that?
Yes.
It makes for very awkward readings.
It sure does. And it's like, oh, sorry. Yes, in our polite greetings webinar, we'll address it much more specifically, but it really is about preempting. So you're giving the dog a path to greeting a person that prevents them getting in that space. And they learn that process of go say hi, and then it becomes a habit for them. So you can preempt it, and you can teach the dog a different way of introducing themselves, and it can be done so that they're not always in somebody's crotch. Yeah. It's annoying.
So make them sit maybe or something like that.
Mm-hmm. You can have them sit. You can actually have them go and you have them go and sniff their feet by putting treats down there at first, and they learn to sniff the feet instead of higher. And that's a great way to preempt it. So we have a thing called a routine called Go Say Hi that kind of interrupts that process. But yeah, train it.
I believe Rox is.
Rox, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I recently adopted Orla from Gold Ribbon Rescue, and she's been here a little over 3 months. And I kind of feel bad to say this, but she is legit unicorn golden retriever. I just learned the term by watching this. I don't even know where she came from. She's like
That's
the
awesome.
perfect dog. All these things that y'all are talking about, I'm keeping in mind for someday that I do
will
want to
happen
foster a
for
golden
future
retriever.
reference.
And also, I don't want to jinx myself by putting it out in the universe by saying that.
I do
But,
think that you get you will, everybody who works with dogs will get a perfect dog in their lifetime
Yeah.
as a reward. So you've got yours.
Yeah, it's yeah, I kind of feel like, you know, somewhere down the line we'll probably get on the other end of the spectrum. But
How
she's
old is she, Rox?
she's, the veterinarians think that she's closer to 2 years old. So I just heard you say that they're kind of, this is my first golden retriever. I used to have an Alaskan Malamute a long time ago.
Love me.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Huskies, and when you were talking about the digging, I didn't realize that I was watching either Discovery Channel or National Geographic about the Iditarods, and they showed the Malamutes and the Huskies out in the snow, and they would just dig, and then sit in a hole. And I go, oh my God, that's why she digs all day. And she sits in the hole. But I was laughing because I think who was talking about, Michelle or somebody was talking about the holes, and I thought to myself, you actually have dirt, because we where did they find the dirt? You hit limestone here. Like, honestly, they're digging rocks. But yeah, so anyways, Orla, she's an absolute sweetheart. She's so sweet and kind, and just everybody, she has this very calm energy about her. Everybody comes up, they say, oh, is she your service dog? And I'm like, no, she's just calm. And then they'll tell me, well, my son has a golden, and I could never take him out. I take her to, I've been, one of the first places I take her to, and I still take her to, is TJ Maxx or Home Goods. And what she's talking about thresholds, I'm going off topic, I'm swirling everywhere because I have so much to say. But we had, while we were out at a food truck park, one of her favorite places, we had this dog trainer. This man came up and said, hi, can I pet your dog? And I said, well, you know, she's a little shy, but she'll come to you if you just kind of put your hand out. And so it's a two-part question. He said that he had been watching her. He was in the Army. He used to train dogs, and he was watching her the whole time. He's like, she'd be an amazing ambassador, or even a service dog. And I'm like, yeah, she's pretty chill, whatever, you know. But when it comes to dogs, she is a little scared. And my question is, she was doing so much better. She's been more willing to approach dogs, and you know, I'm looking for all the signs, the licking or the yawning, or, you know, the tail and that type of thing. And she's doing better. She finally got there, and then she had a really negative interaction with her neighbor dog. The neighbor dog came and like at her. And so now she's just kind of back to square one. And so do you have any recommendations on that?
Go really slow. Was the neighbor's dog off leash or on leash?
No, on a leash. So it was kind of us too. Like we tried to, like, we're looking at the other neighbor's dogs, and it was actually a beagle.
Okay.
And you know, I wasn't there. My husband was there, and he's like came back and he said, Sarah's dog. And I was like, oh my God, is she okay? And I'm all looking at her, and he's like, no, she's fine. But I think that he said that on the leash, and kind of darted, and the owner, my neighbor, you know, like just kind of pulled her with her, and then got Orla. So didn't like break skin or anything, but like came and like snapped at her. You know what I mean? So that freaked her out. She's just kind of like, no, I don't want to. I'm not very sociable right now.
I'm not a fan of dogs meeting on leash until you've done some parallel walks at a distance. There's a protocol for that to get them to meet. On leash, when dogs meet on leash nose to nose, there's a lot of tension in the leash, which gets them tension in their body. And it can actually create the misunderstanding and the snaps. And then when you pull the dog back, it actually is like a go button to fight when you add that additional tension. And so I really am not a fan of dogs meeting nose to nose or on leash unless you've gone through the process of walking a distance with the dog parallel out, you know, and you start walking really far apart and then you slowly close the gap and walk parallel. And what that teaches the dog is, hey, we're walking together. This other dog is okay. But it also keeps them from going nose to nose. And after a bit, you can let them sniff each other and all will go well. Dogs, if they're polite, sniff each other's booties, they don't go to nose, right? But the leash kind of forces them into nose to nose. It's an artificial way of meeting. And so in order to socialize her to dogs, don't let her meet dogs on leash at all. Until you've got somebody who can do the parallel walks, like a friend. We can talk to us about it. We also do some things like we'll do dog park stuff with dogs where we know who's in the dog park. That helps a lot. There's ways to socialize, but dogs were designed by us to be companions to us. Generally, they don't need to be friends with each other unless you've done the preparation and training to keep everybody safe.
Okay. I guess things are just going so well, you know, like from afar, nobody seems like this dog is particularly reactive. I'm going to use your terminology, like, and we've been, you know, with other dogs, we've seen her like, oh, that dog's sweet. You know, that dog, you know, and so this has been going so well. And so I guess maybe we kind of let our guard
your
down.
neighbors to go for like a walk down the block where they're on one side of the street and you're on the other, and then slowly, gradually come together. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you have to do that low pressure greeting and it really works.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this. I really appreciate all the information and
thank you. We love
everybody's questions and sharing. This is amazing. I'm really truly grateful.
Thank you.
Grateful for all this.
Thank you.
Stories too. And I'm gonna go to this, our closing thoughts. You guys are prepping dogs to either come into your home or someone else's home. And having looking at the dog's state instead of addressing behavior specifically can help you move that dog through all that whole list of behaviors if need be, just by addressing the state. So, you know, if your dog is jumping and mouthing and barking, well, those are all yellow behaviors that show the dog is either bored, restless, or anxious. You figure out which, you address that core cause, and those behaviors come down. So instead of us spending our time giving a whole bunch of different ways to address a single behavior, I wanted you to think of the key as looking at the dog's internal state and addressing that so they can return to the green. And I love that you're doing the work you do. It's just such a glorious thing. Your organization is so good. And as a community, you're wonderful. Support each other by asking questions like, do you think my dog's in yellow? You know, and then you can get through some brainstorming on ways to help. These dogs are the unicorns in a lot of ways, but understanding that they need the support to be that unicorn dog. It's really rare to have one that doesn't need the support. Every dog needs something. And even Rock's like, your perfect dog needs help learning how to address other dogs and to see which dog is safe to sniff and so forth, right? They all need some type of support. But here's the best thing is they are magical. And that's because you are putting the energy and empathy and compassion into the helping them grow. Thank you for being on this call with us. If you need anything, we're here for you. We're an email away. Our website is cspotbehave.com. Gold Ribbon Rescue has the best behavior team I've ever worked with. They are fantastic and they're so responsive. I mean, they're immediate. So if you have any need for your dog, always go through them first. And then if you need to, you can reach out to us. But for you, especially if you're fostering, rely on Michelle and the rest of the team because they are phenomenal. My last thing to say is dogs do speak, but only to those who know how to listen. This is a great way to learn how to listen to your dog.
Well, and that's a good segue into next month's session. I love it.
Yes, next month's is body language.
Body
Awesome.
language.
Body
Yes.
language.
Oh, the last webinar, is it posted on the website with the vagus nerve thingy?
Not yet.
No, okay.
We're working on creating a resource page on our website, but I can send you the link for the webinar from
Oh,
last.
awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You betcha. Thanks, guys. Are there any parting questions? Otherwise, have a great night. Thank you for being patient with the start.
Yes. Yeah.
What a crazy
guys.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for Michelle.
Go for it.
Your email about the webinar said that it was open to the GRR community. Is that does that include the people that have adopted, or is that just the volunteers? Or
Yes, people that have adopted from Gold Ribbon, absolutely.
oh, awesome. Okay, I'll when I do the phone interviews for the follow-ups, is it okay to tell people that?
Yes.
This is invaluable. This was awesome, Debbie.
Thank you so much. It was so good to see names I've seen before. Thank you for being here, and I hope we'll see you next month. And thanks everybody for sharing your stories.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.